It's that fantastic time of the week where I get to deep dive into something a little bit more advanced when it comes to WordPress. Today, we're going to be taking a look at building a business listing WordPress website using advanced custom fields and some additional plugins that allows you to do a couple of things. First and most importantly, we can upload via the front end. So in other words, we can have forms inserted into our site to let the end user insert their details and have that business automatically listed after approval. So that's pretty cool. We're also going to take a look at other things like live filtering, advanced searches, and so on. So if you're interested, stick around. I'm going to take you through the entire process of building that business website right now. My name is Paul C. This is WPTuts, the channel where I help you get more from WordPress. If you'd like to learn more and be kept up to date with all the new content we add every single week, don't forget to hit that subscribe button down below and smash that bell icon to be notified every time new content is added. Okay, so let's just jump over now and take a look at all the tools we're going to start using to build out this business listing website using WordPress and advanced custom fields. Before we dive in, there are two things I want to go over. First and most importantly, this is not a beginner's tutorial. You're going to need to know how to do quite a few of the basic things, such as installing themes, working with WordPress in general, the basics of custom post types and advanced custom fields, and also the theme builder inside Elementor Pro. If you don't know those, there are plenty of videos on the channel. I'll link to the playlist below for the dynamic content, so you can check that out. Get yourself up to speed, jump back in, and follow along what we've got. The second thing I want to say is some of these plugins, while I haven't purchased them myself, they've been supplied by the actual developers. None of these have sponsored this particular video, so everything is going to be shown exactly as is, warts and all. Okay, so the first thing we need to do now is make sure we've got all of these different plugins installed. I'm going to go through those quickly. We've got Advanced Custom Fields Pro. The reason we're using Pro is because we're going to use the gallery feature inside this particular tutorial. However, if you don't need the gallery, and you just want to upload single images, you don't need to go for the Pro version, you can go for the free version. We've got Custom Post UI or CPT UI, which is again a completely free plugin, so you need to download and install that. Elementor, the free version, and Elementor Pro, because we want to work with those custom post types and we want to create our own custom theme templates. We've then got Facet WP. Now Facet WP opens up all the filtering options that we have. There are a lot more things it can do, but for now in this particular video we're going to focus on the filtering. We've also got the Facet WP Elementor plugin, which is part of Facet WP and just allows it to work alongside Elementor. Next on the list is Search WP, and what this does is it opens up the ability to search your advanced custom fields and everything that is included in that, and not just be limited to posts and pages. It's one of those plugins that again is something you have to pay for, and there are going to be alternatives out there, so if you want to check those out you can do. For this one I found Search WP does a really good job. We've then got WP User Front End and Front End Pro Business. This is the plugin that's going to allow us to have front-end form submission and also link that through to the advanced custom fields and a whole range of other things, including things along the lines of requiring the ability to have a logged in account to create different redirections for the different parts of that account and a whole lot of other things. We're going to cover the basics in this video, which is just how we use it for front-end form submission, but there are a ton of options and we will take a look at that in a future video where I can go into a lot more detail. So that's what we've got, that's what we need. We're now ready to start building out our new business listing website through ACF and Elementor Pro. So with all that out of the way, first thing we need to do building our business listing website is start to create the custom post types. So what we need to do, go into custom post type and we're going to go into add edit post types. Once we're inside there, we're going to put some basics in. We're only going to create one post type for this, but obviously if you want to create more, you can use the same procedure and build this out to as much and as complex as you want. We're going to keep this pretty straightforward so I can cover the basics. So we're going to call this business. This is going to be the slug that's going to be used for it, so make sure you use something short and succinct just to make life easy. Then we've got the plural label, which is going to be business is, and then the singular label, which is business. Now I've already covered how these advanced custom post types work in the past. I'm not going to go into too much detail with them right now. Suffice it to say, the next additional labels is purely optional. If you want to set anything in there, you can do that. For this example, I'm not going to. We're interested in the settings section. Now inside the settings section, we've got a range of different things we can, if we want to, change, but we've only got a couple of basics. So we just scroll down through the settings. What we want to do is make sure this is set to hierarchical. So we say yes for that. Menu position, if we want to, we're going to set that to be 2, so it goes where I want it to go. We're going to come down and we can say show in menu true, that's right, fine. Next up, we're going to add a menu icon in. I'm going to use a dash icon, which I know is this building one. And then we can scroll down and we've got, what does this actually support? So we can specify what this particular custom post type supports. We want the title, the editor, and the featured image. If we want anything else, we can add those in there. For now, we'll leave those as they are. Everything else is pretty cool. I like that. What we're going to do now is scroll back up to the top. And once we're at the top, we can simply hit add post type. That's created our custom post type. If we take a look on the top left hand side, you'll see now we have the businesses section. We have all businesses where we can go in and view all the businesses we've created, and the add new option. So that's our business listing setup. Now let's create the taxonomy. Now you should be accustomed to what taxonomies are. They're basically a way of grouping different things together to make them a logical sort of group. So in other words, we've got the business type, which is what we're going to create. So we'll have things like web design companies, you might have printers and those kinds of things. It's an easy way of grouping things together. So the same kind of procedure. This time we choose add edit taxonomies. And once we've done that, we can now go through and edit or create any taxonomies that we have. Now, as you can see, this is very similar to the previous option. However, we're going to put a taxonomy slug in, and we're going to call this business type. And you'll also notice that as I put a spacing, it automatically puts in the underscore. This is something that needs to be inserted. So just be aware that if you put a space in and you're wondering why, that's the reason why. It has to be in there for the taxonomy to work correctly. Next up, we've got the plural label. So again, we're going to do the same thing again. Business, copy that, we'll put that below. Then we've got attached to post type. You can see we've got all the normal WordPress core functions like posts, pages, and media. We also have businesses, which is the custom post type that we've just created. We want this taxonomy associated with that, so we can just check that option, and you can see that now adds it in there for us. Again, if we scroll down, you can see we've got a ton of options where we can rename all those different labels, and at the settings section, we can come in and we can make sure we've got everything laid out and set up the way we want. So again, we need to make sure that this is set up to be hierarchical. So all we need to do, it says hierarchical, set it to false. We'll just set that to true, and that should be everything we need. So there we go, everything's in place. But bear in mind, if you need to, you can come back and make any changes if you miss something out. So let's hit add taxonomy. If we take a look now at our business section, you can see we now have a third entry called business type. This is where we can go in and group our business types together via that new taxonomy. Now I'm going to go through this process one more time, this time for the business locations. I'm not going to show you exactly what I'm doing because it's exactly the same as we've just done. So for speed, I'm going to do that and then we'll crack on. So there we go, that's the new taxonomy inserted, and you can see under the business section now we've got business location alongside business type. So there's the basics. The next thing we need to do now is create the custom post data, the advanced custom fields that we want to associate with this business. So we take a look at the moment, we're going to add new. You see all we have is the title for the business, the description for the business, and also the business type, the business location, and the set featured image. So there's nothing else really in there. If you're wondering about this content restriction option at the bottom, this is part of the user front end form plugin, and it's not something we need to worry about in this particular tutorial. It just means you can lock things away and only allow access to people that are registered and have an account as part of that front end software. Okay, so there's the basics. We now need to go through and add in those custom fields. So I'm going to come into custom fields and choose field groups. And in there, it'll list any of the field groups we currently have. Now, obviously, we have nothing set up, so we're going to go through the process of creating those. So the first thing we want to do is we're going to give this a name. So we're going to go add new. We're going to call this business listing. But obviously, you can call this whatever you want to. Now, before we add the fields in, let's go and set the location up. In other words, the rule for where this will apply and any of the settings we need to change. So at the moment it says post type is equal to post. So if we created any custom fields, this would assign this to the normal WordPress post feature, which isn't what we want. We're going to change this now down to business. So saying post type is equal to business. That's all we need to do. That will now associate all the custom fields we create with our new custom post type. If we scroll down, you can see we've got some options in there for the style, the position, label, and so on. We can, if we want to, hide any of these elements, but they're already in there. So we don't need to worry too much about that. But obviously, if you want to, you can easily come in and say you want the content editor, the excerpt, for example, or discussion and so on. We'll leave those as they are for now. So next thing we need to do is create the custom fields that we want. So let's add in at first field. This opens up all the options we have available with this particular field type. So the first thing we're going to do is call this business address. So the business address, we're going to drop that in there. You can see it automatically pre-fills the field name out. Next, we've got the field type. Text is perfectly fine for this. We can also do things like insert default values, instructions, and so on. All we want to do is make sure this is required, because if you're going to list your business, we need to make sure that your business address is on there. If you want to set anything like placeholder text, character limits and so on, you can do that. For this example, we're going to leave it as is. Next field we're going to add in is going to be the business strapline. Now again, this is one of those things, it's entirely up to you what information you put in. I'll set that to text. This isn't required, so they can put this in if they want to. They might not have a business strapline. Add our next field in. Our next field is going to be the business telephone. And as you can see, the nice thing with advanced custom fields, it automatically pre-fills that field name out based upon your field label and also gets rid of any spaces in there. So text is fine on there. Now I'm going to quickly go through the additional fields we want, and then I'll come back with the last field and I'm going to show you we set that up slightly differently. So let's just pause the video and I'll be back in a couple of seconds. So the final field I'm going to add in is the gallery field. So we're going to say add new field. We're going to call this business gallery. Under the field type, we're going to change this, and this is where having the pro version of advanced custom fields comes in handy because it gives us some extra tools, the gallery being one of them. So we're going to drop that in there. We can then go through and choose how we want our data to be output, also the preview size and anything else we want. And for this example, and to work well with the form element that we're going to create for the front end submission, we're going to leave this as image array. That's perfectly fine. The preview size then is the preview size that you'll see inside the dashboard of WordPress. So this is just going to give you a little sort of thumbnail or 300 by 300 pixel thumbnail of any of the images you upload. Next up, we're going to say where do we want to upload these. So you can add them to the library so they become available to anybody, or what I prefer is upload to post. Then you can go through and you've got things like minimum selections and stuff like that. It's up to you if you want to put things like that in there. However, the only thing I want to put in is the allowed file types, and we're going to limit that to JPEGs, GIFs, and PNG files. So we can make sure that only the file types that we want are going to be uploaded. And there we go. That's the basics of what we need to do. If we scroll down to the bottom, you can see we've got some options in there for styles and so on. We can leave all that as is. All we're going to do is come back up the top and click on Publish. That will now create our business listing advanced custom field group. And if we come back into businesses now and go to add new, we'll see all of our new custom fields have been inserted in there, ready for us to start working with our new custom post type. So very easy, and also a great way of adding extra functionality. So that's the first part done. So before we move on to actually creating the layouts for all this, let's take a look at how we can set things up for the businesses. We see the information we've got for adding a new business. Before we do that though, let's go in and set up our business type. Now these business type and business location are going to be used for the filters as part of our website. So anything you want to kind of filter against, this is a good way of setting things up. So if you have business types, business locations, you may have featured businesses or anything you kind of want to put into a taxonomy that you can group things together. This then opens up that filter option, which means that you can filter your data and show only the businesses that match those criteria in a very simple fashion. So just bear that in mind when you're creating things and setting things up. Thinking about your data structure, it's good to bear those things in mind. So the first thing we're going to do is put in a couple of categories. So we'll put art supplies, we'll add new business type, come in and we'll do bakery, and business type, and finally we'll just do web design. Now you can set this up in a hierarchical way if you want to, so you could have design, for example, then you can have web design, graphic design as subsections of that. However you want to do it, it's entirely up to you. Next up, we're going to come in and we're going to add a couple of locations in. So we just say we'll have Cardiff, add that in. We'll have London, add that one in, and we'll have and add that one in. Okay, so there's our business locations and our business types. Now if we come back in and add a new business, we'll see those are pre-populated on the right-hand side under the relevant section. You can add more if you want to directly inside you, and that will update everything throughout your site because everything is done dynamically. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to quickly go through and add some business data in. So we've got a couple of businesses we can see, and we can use those then when we're creating our custom layouts. So now I've created a couple of businesses, we can go on and start to create the pages that are going to display these businesses and then move on to the filtering and searching. So what we're going to do, we're going to come over to our pages section and come into all pages. Now I've already created a blank placeholder page for our business listing. So we're going to come into that and you can see there's nothing on the page at all. Now there are two ways you could do this. If you want to, we can do a simple way of pulling in posts directly from using the widgets as part of Elementor Pro. Or we can use something like Ele Custom Skin to create our custom loop. To start off with, I'll show you the quick and simple way of doing this, and then we'll take a look at the Ele Custom Skin option and install the plugin and show you how you can expand what you can do using that plugin. Best of all, it's completely free. Okay, so let's just edit with Elementor. Once we're inside there now, we can start building out our basic layout. Now, I'm not going to worry too much about how this all looks at the moment. We'll come in and fine tune that a little later. Let's just get rid of that heading. Come back over to our widgets, and we're going to come over to our post section. So we're going to drag that over, and that allows us now to start showing our posts. Let's just add a little bit of spacing around this. So we'll just add a bit of spacing at the top and the bottom, just to give it a bit of breathing room. Now at the moment you can see it's showing the hello world, which is the default post that you get as part of WordPress. It's not what we want. So what we need to do is come down to our query section, and from there we're going to change this from source being posts, and we'll change it to businesses, which is our custom post type. Click on that. You'll see that now shows our 3 businesses we've just added in there and shows the basic info. We can also come back into the layout section. We can come in and we can change this between classic and cards if we want to, and then we can go through and we can just get rid of anything we don't think is relevant. So we can get rid of the date and all the meta information. We can remove things like the read more, we can remove the badge if we want to, the avatar, and end up with a much simpler, cleaner looking listing. So if this is something that works for you, you can use this option and just leave it clean and simple. It has the photograph, the business name, and the basic overview of what the business does. But if you want to add more things in there, for example, you may want to put the business type, the business location, the phone number, email address, all those kinds of things, you're kind of limited what you can do with the sort of out-of-the-box functionality that Elementor Pro gives us. This is where a plugin like Ele Custom Skin comes in, where we can create our own custom individual versions of each one of these. Now, these are basically part of the WordPress loop. So if we create a template for one of these, that template will then apply to all of them. This is where we can start pulling in those advanced custom fields. So this is the quick and easy way of doing it. The only thing I would say is if you're using Facet WP, you just need to make sure that you come in and say enable that. That just enables that functionality and we can start using it. So we can hit update on there and that will create that page for us, and any new businesses will be added in there. So that's good. However, let me show you the other way of doing it. Let's come back out of this. To exit our dashboard, come back down to our plugin section and we'll say add new. Once we're in there, we're going to search for a plugin. So we're going to search for Ele Custom Skin. Now I've done a dedicated video on this which you can take a look at if you want to get more information about it. However, suffice it to say, if you're building anything with advanced custom fields or anything along those lines, this is a plugin that is a godsend if you're using Elementor Pro. It just gives you so much more in the way of options for design and so on. So let's activate that and let me just show you how we can use it. Once activated, we're going to come out to the template section, we're going to come into Theme Builder, and inside there we now have a new tab called Loop. So we click on Loop, we have nothing in there, so we can go through and create our first loop. And like I said, the thing to bear in mind with this is you are just creating the template for one of those entries that will be part of the loop, in this example for our businesses. So let's just say add a new loop. We're going to call this Default Business Loop. Again, like I say, when it comes to doing things like this, it's always good to get into naming conventions so you know exactly what you're doing. I always put default something afterwards. So default business loop, so we know it's the default one that's going to be used for pretty much everything unless I do a custom one, and the loop so we know exactly what it's to do with. Same goes with Singular, same goes with the archives and so on. Just makes my life a lot easier. Let's say create a template, and that'll take us over into the Elementor editor and we can start using the widgets inside there. Now obviously we have no template blocks associated with this or any pages or templates, so we create our own. So we can just close out of this and we're now ready to start building our first one. So what we're going to do is we're going to create that first layout. So the first thing we need to do is just put our featured image in. We can do that very easily. We're going to grab the image widget, drag that over, drop it on there. We're going to set this to be centered so it'll always work nicely. We're going to set the link in there to be the custom URL. I'm going to click on there. We're going to say dynamic, and we're going to say we want the post URL. So what that's going to do is make the image clickable and also take us over to the post, which in this example is going to be the business entry. Next up, let's just change this to large. It isn't too big and overpowering. Next, we need to come in and specify where the image is going to be sourced from. So we'll click on dynamic and we're going to say featured image under the post section. That will then pull in a featured image. Now, if you're not seeing anything on here at the moment, it's because we haven't told Elementor what data to use to populate this particular preview. Do that, come to the settings section, under there, preview settings, expand that out, and you see preview dynamic content as is currently blank. Click on there, we're going to come down and say business because we are creating a business loop. Click on business. What we'll do is change it from all and we'll just search for one of the businesses. So we'll use the art supplies one. So click on that one, click on apply and preview, and that will then load in the preview of that particular featured image. And there we go. So we've now got the placeholder in there. Come back over, we can adjust that if we want to. Yeah, that'll look good. That's okay. Next up, we're going to come in and we're going to say we're going to put a heading. We'll drop that underneath. We can set the alignment on there if we want to, but we're going to leave it as is. We'll say we're going to set this to dynamic, and we're going to say that we want the post title. So we're going to say we want the post title. So once you see, there we go, there's art supply. So it's all associating with the right things. Next up, we're going to come back in and we're going to add in some additional fields. First things first, let's just put in something like an inner section. And in there, we're going to drop in a couple of bits of info. First things first, let's just select that, set the column gap to be no gap, vertical align to be middle to make sure everything lines up nice and neat and tidy. And then what we can do now is we can drop in some text in this. We'll drop in a text editor in there. And from there, we're going to just change this from what it says, and we're going to say, so there we go, there's the first part. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to come over and we're going to do the same thing again. So we're just going to simply copy this, so just duplicate, drag that over into the next column. And from there, we're going to change that from being the text that's in there. We'll get rid of that. Click on dynamic. What we're going to do is we're going to scroll right the way down to our ACF fields. Click on there, click on the little wrench icon, and we're going to choose the business telephone. Once you've done that, that'll pull in the phone number, and there we go. So you can now repeat that as many times as you want for any additional information you want to put in there. So I'll quickly do that a couple more times, add in a little bit of styling so we've got something looking nice and neat and tidy. Okay, there's some really basic styling applied to that now. So let's click on publish. It says, where do you want to use this template? So we say add a condition, we'll say entire site. So that's pretty good. We say save and close. That's now created that loop template for us. So now we need to go in and use it. Come back out of this, exit to our dashboard, come back to our pages section and go back to all pages. And we're going to open up our business listing page again. To edit this Elementor, once we've done that, and Elementor loads in, we're going to select this edit post widget. Now at the moment you see it says skin and we've chosen cards. We can do, you can see now we have custom inside there. If we choose custom, we can now select a template. Click on there, you can see there's our default business loop, which is the custom template we just created. Choose that. And you can see now we've updated that with our layout. Now there are a couple of visual issues on here at the moment, which is easy to sort out. But what you can see is we can now pull in any ACF data that we want as part of our design. So it's very quick and easy to do that. And also, like I say, it gives you a really great way of being able to create custom listings with additional information you can't normally do inside Elementor itself. So I'm going to tidy up those problems on there and then we'll move on. So I've gone ahead, tweak things on the layout, adjusted a few things, and we take a look now. If we come back over, this is the demonstration page for our business list, and you'll see now everything is laid out nice and neat. If we mouse over, you can see we now get an effect, so you can see this feedback whenever anyone goes to click on something. Speaking of clicking on something, if we click to go and take a look at a business, you can see all we end up with is a basic template that we have as part of WordPress, and it's missing all of our custom information. So the next thing we're going to do is take a look at how we can create and link in all the data from our custom post type into our individual singular template. So creating template files with Elementor Pro is pretty simple and straightforward, and adding in the ACF fields is also a very simple thing. So we're going to concentrate on this stage of the video is dealing with the single template. So all we need to do inside the theme builder is choose single, and from there we say add a new single. Single is fine, you can see that's got a range of options in there, but single is what we want. Select the post type, this is the important stage now. We need to ensure that we choose the custom post type that we created. In our example, that's the business custom post type. So we're going to choose that, we're going to call this default business single. So again, I'm keeping to that convention, that naming convention. It's the default, it's the single, and it's applied to the business listing. Create our template, and we're going to open up Elementor, load in the template options where we can pick any of the predefined templates and so on if we have anything in there, and also any template files we may have saved ourselves. Nothing's in here at the moment, so we're going to say we're going to close out of that, and we're going to use this now as the basis for building out our design. Now, to save boring you go through the whole process of creating these templates, I'm going to skip that part. I'm going to just pull in some basic data that I've already created in another template, but what I will do is show you how you can link your ACF data into it and start using that. So the first thing I want to do is just pull in my header. So we're going to paste in the template for that. Now all I've done with this, you can see there's an image in here already. So if I click on that, we come over to the style section. You can see under the background tab, we're using dynamic data. So to do that is very easy. Let's just get rid of what we currently have. So we've got the placeholder there now. This is just a typical section, nothing in there at all. So if we click on dynamic, we're going to choose featured image. And you can see that immediately pulls in the featured image from our post, or our custom post type in this example, the business custom post type. You can then style it and position it, put any overlays you want on there, any kind of thing that you want to do to this particular layout. So the next thing I want to do is pull in some business details, which are things like the business name, the strapline they've got, and those kinds of things. So again, I'm going to pull in the predefined template and show you how that's done. Okay, so I pulled the section now that's going to have the business details in there. You can see I've just got a simple heading at the top, nothing special in there, just a simple heading, just to say what's underneath it. So what we need to do now is come back over into our widgets. We're going to choose either heading, or if we want to, we can use post title. Now, these 8 features we have, these 8 widgets we have at the beginning, you're only going to see those when you're working with the single template file. If you're dealing with an archive or anything else, you won't see these options. So you can tap in and use these if you want to. It makes life a lot easier. So let's just do exactly that. We'll say we want to pull the post title in, so we're going to simply drag that down, drop that underneath our business details. We do the same again. We're going to click back onto our widgets. This time we're going to pull in a custom field. So obviously we can't use any of these because these are typical data that you have as part of your post. What we need to do is simply come over to the heading section. We'll drag and drop that underneath the business name. We're going to change that to something like heading 4, so it's less important and also, like I say, good for your SEO. We don't want this title that's going to be used. We want to use the dynamic again. So we're going to click on dynamic, and from there we're simply going to come down to ACF field, click on there, then click on the wrench icon and choose what field we want. This is going to be the business strapline. And you can see that will pull the strapline in and position that exactly where we want it to. So it's very easy to do. So now we can go ahead and style those. So for speed, I'm just going to simply paste in the styles that I've already created, so you don't have to wait around for me to do these kinds of things. So we'll do the same underneath that, paste our style. So you can see everything now is positioned the way we want. What I'm going to do is come over to this section. We're going to come up to the margins and we're going to set a -220. And that will position that a little higher. And you can do things if you want to, like you say, you could drop in a button, for example, that would allow you to contact the business. So you could easily come in, grab a button. Once I can find where the button is on here. There we go. Drop the button in there. And then if I want to, I can simply style that any way that I want. So we'll paste our style in there. And then we could change that to, for example, contact business. There we go. So you can see we could easily create a button that'll tie into the style that we want. So there's our business information. We've got the title and the strapline. So next thing you want to do is pull in the actual content for the business, the slider, the gallery of images, the map, and all those kinds of things. What we need to do is simply come in, we're going to click, we're going to create a 2-column layout, something like this. We're going to add a little bit of padding at the top and bottom. So we'll just come into the top, 50 pixels there, 50 pixels there, just to give us a bit of breathing space. So next up, let's drop in the map that we want to use that pulls in the location data for the business. So let's find our Google Maps, drag and drop that into there. You can see it pulls in the default location data, but we don't want to use that. We want to click on dynamic, and from there we're going to come down to ACF fields, click on the little wrench icon, and this time we're going to choose business address. So you can see it's a pretty repetitive process. You simply pull in the ACF field, click on the wrench icon, choose which custom field you want to use, and then you are pretty much done. Again, same with the styling, so I'm simply going to copy the styling from what I've already created in my test site, and we'll just paste that into there so we can paste our styling in. Okay, so there's that part done. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to put in the gallery. So come back over to our widgets. This time we're going to choose carousel. We want an image carousel, so we're going to drag and drop that into our design. And again, we're going to come into the dynamic option. We have less options this time because Elementor is intelligent enough to know that if you are choosing a certain type of widget, then there are only certain types of fields that you can actually pull data from. In this example, it's either the post image attachments or the ACF gallery field. So we click on ACF gallery field. Now, I've only got one gallery field created. As you can see, no images are showing up. And this is a very common mistake. What you still need to do is come back to the little wrench icon and then choose the key. And the key is basically, what is the ACF field that you want to use? All the ACF gallery field says is it's of an ACF gallery field type. So once we choose business gallery, we should see the images load in. Now sometimes you can have a little bit of a weird situation here where it doesn't show up straight away. Let's just change the image sizes and so on. We'll just set these to be medium large, for example. And like I say, there's a bit of a weird quirk that it doesn't always show up on here. Now what you could do at this point is simply publish a page, apply the condition to it, reload it, and you should find the images will load in. Like I say, it's just a visual quirk, so don't worry too much about it. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to quickly set the values that I want for my particular example. And once we've done that, we have the basics of what I need in there. Okay, so next up, we're going to pull in the business details. So first things first, we're going to grab a widget, we're going to come down to heading, and we're going to drop a heading section underneath there. I'm simply going to copy my styling from there. So I'm going to paste my style in, and there we go. So that's pulled the style in. We're going to change this text from being add your placeholder text kind of rubbish, and we're going to put in business details. Next up, we're going to drop in the next element, which in this example is going to be an inner section. We're going to drop that below. And there we go. So that's our inner section set up on there. Next, we're going to grab another of the heading sections. We're going to drop that into there. We're going to change this to address. We'll worry about the styling a little later on. We're going to set the heading to heading 4. And then what we're going to do is we're going to drop in a custom field on the right-hand side. So all we need to do is simply come over to our text editor, drag and drop that into there. Choose dynamic as an option, scroll right the way down to our ACF fields, click on the wrench icon, and this time we're going to pull in the business address. Now I've only used a really simple business address, just the city. You can use a full address with a postcode and all those kinds of things. That will work exactly the same. And it also pull in your map data a lot closer to what you currently see on the example that we've got on screen. Like I say, this is all just showing you how to do something. You can crack on and get as creative as you want and pull in whatever data you want to. Okay, so now we've done that, and I'm simply going to select this, set my vertical align to be middle to make sure everything is aligned the way I want, and then I'm going to duplicate this. So I'm going to duplicate this 3 times, or duplicate it 3 times in total. Change address, and we're going to put that in there. We're going to put in telephone. Next up, we're going to put the next one. I'm going to change that from address, and we're going to put that to email. Then we're going to come over to the right-hand columns. We're going to change the little wrench icon, and we're going to change those. So this time we want telephone. Let me just spell that correctly as well. There we go. And finally, we'll change the email and do the same again. So we'll just change that to business email. Now, obviously, you can add as many of these as you want in to get exactly the styling that you want, the exact amount of information that you want. Let me just quickly style these a second. So we'll just paste our styles in. We'll do the same again, paste our style, and the final paste style. And let's quickly just style these elements as well. So paste our style on all of these. There we go, nearly finished. And we'll just do the same on the last elements. Paste style, paste style, paste style. So it contains to take our style in it. Okay, so we're nearly finished. What we need to do now is just simply come back over, and this time we're going to grab the post content and drop that into its own section below. So I'm going to drop that in there, and then we can style that if we want to. So we can do whatever we want now to style everything out on there. Okay, so there's our business listing page. So let's just publish this. So I'm going to click on publish. You can see at the moment it says businesses all. If you want to set this up to specific sections, you can do that. But for us, businesses all is perfectly fine. And we'll say save and close. So once we've done that, if we jump back over to our test site now, and we come back to our business listings, if we choose any of these businesses, we're going to now go over to our custom created single post page. So I'm going to click. That's going to take us over, and you can see now we have our custom layout with all our custom ACF data being pulled in. We can add any other elements we want in there, like subscriptions, signups, all those kinds of good things. But what you can see is it's very easy now to create this custom listing page. So we've gone through, we've created a custom listing for our actual layouts for our businesses. We've created a custom single post type. What's next? Well, what we're going to cover next is we're going to go through and create the filters. So we're going to use Facet WP for this. So once we've worked on this, we're going to come back out. We've finished with our templates. We're going to exit to our dashboard. And then we're going to come down into settings. And in there, we've got Facet WP. So we're going to click and open that up. And we can now go through and see everything that's available to us. Now, by default, when you install Facet WP, you're going to have this predefined categories sort of filter. We don't want that. We're going to click to get rid of it. We want to start with a nice, fresh, clean template. So let's take a look at the settings and what we can do to create our first filter. Now, out of the box, Facet WP is a fairly simple and straightforward plugin. You can add in lots of extra functionality, but for this example, we're just sticking to the basics. So let's click on Add New Facet, and in there we now have just some simple options. First thing we're going to do is give this a name. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to name this the same as the taxonomy that I'm kind of linking it to. So the first one we're going to do is business type. You'll see once we do that, it gives it a name of business type. We can then choose the facet type. In other words, just think of facets as filters. So what kind of filter do you want to use? We can click and expand, and you can see we've got things like checkboxes, drop downs, hierarchy, all those kinds of things. We've created a simple taxonomy that uses checkboxes. So we're going to choose checkboxes for this example, but you can use any of these other facets. Now, if you'd like me to cover Facet WP in more detail, let me know in the comment section below so I can create something for you if there's enough interest in showing you more on what you can do with this. Okay, so there's the first two things done. Next is the data source. In other words, where are we going to filter? What are we going to filter inside our WordPress setup? I'm going to click. You can see we've got a ton of options in here. Lots of things are the custom fields we've created. So you can see advanced custom fields, and it gives us the name of the custom field group that we have, and also the name of the ACF field itself. What we want to do though is you want to come down to taxonomies and keep on going until we find business type. So we're going to click on business type, and that's the first thing done. Next up, we can just fine tune and configure the way this is all going to look. So you can see we've got parent term and show expanded and so on. What we're going to do is choose hierarchical, and we're going to say show ghosts. Now what show ghosts will do is anything that is not part of the filter. So say for example we filter by location, and we've got London, Cardiff and Edinburgh. If we choose London, Cardiff and Edinburgh will be ghosted, but you can still see them there, you just can't select them. So this is a nice visual way of doing that. Then we've got options underneath which we're going to leave as they are. So all we're going to do is we're going to say save changes. We're going to hit the re-index just to make sure that it goes through and indexes everything we've just done. And once that's finished, we're ready to move on and create our next facet or filter. So what we're going to do is we're going to come back out of this, and we're going to create a new one. So add new again. This time we're going to name this business locations. Checkbox is perfectly fine. Then we've got the post type. We're going to scroll right the way through until we find the taxonomies, and we're going to choose business location. Same again, hierarchical, and we're going to say show expanded. That's it, show ghosts, I should say. Okay, so let's just re-index that. And once that's finished, we'll save our changes. And that's our two facets or filters created, ready for us to start using those. So that's our filters set up and created. Next thing you need to do is create an area that we're going to use and reuse in various different templates. So we're going to do that by coming over into our template section and coming down to save templates. Now inside there, we're going to create a global widget. So we're going to say add new, select, we're going to come down and we want to say a section, and we're going to call this filter section. Create our template. And this is where we're going to house those filters. We can reuse those anytime we want to in our design. So we don't want any of these predefined library layouts. We're going to get rid of that. And for this example, we're going to create an inner section. We're going to drag that over, drop that in. 2 columns is perfectly fine. We're going to come down to next is we're going to come into the widget section, and we're going to add in a shortcode. So we're going to say shortcode and drag and drop that into there. Now, this is the important thing. We need to have the shortcode from Facet WP for each of these different filters or facets. Once we've got that, we can drop those in there. So we just jump back over into Facet WP. You can see if we come back out to our facets, let's start off with our business type. If we click on that, you can see we've got the option to copy shortcode. So let's do just that. We'll jump back into our filter section, come back into our shortcode widget, drop that in there and hit apply. Do the same again now for the next section. So again, we're going to use shortcode. Drag that to our next section for our next set of filters, come back out to this, and we're going to come back out to our facets, and we're going to go to business location this time, copy that shortcode, jump back in and paste in our shortcode inside there. So there's our shortcode. So we'll apply that. We've now created our filter section that we can use anywhere we want on the site. We'll publish just to make sure everything is completed, and we're now done with that section. Let's come back out of this and exit to our dashboard. Let's go back to our pages, and we're going to say all pages, and let's use that first filter. On our business listing, we're going to edit with Elementor. Once we've done that, we can go through the process of adding this where we want into our design. So I'm going to create a new section at the top. There's going to be an expandable area that we can drop the filters into. So we're going to say, add this in, a single row column, choose that. We're going to put a slight background color on there. So we're going to come to our style, into our background. We'll choose a background color. We'll just choose a very, very pale gray so we get some form of separation. That'll do. And we'll add a little bit of padding top and bottom in there. So we'll just say 20 top, 20 bottom. Come back out of there. What we're going to do now is we're going to drop in a simple way of being able to expand our filters when we want them. So we're going to choose the toggle option, drag and drop that into there. Going to get rid of the second toggle, and we're going to just open this up, and we're going to call this filters. Once we've done that, we're going to get rid of anything that's inside here, jump over to the text section, and now we're going to drop in an Elementor shortcode. So this is really cool. Whenever you create sections inside Elementor or any kind of template, you get a template shortcode with Elementor Pro. We can then use those pretty much anywhere on the site. So let me show you what I'm talking about. Jump back over to our Save Template section, and there's our filter section. There's our shortcode, so we're going to copy that from there. I'm going to jump back into what we're working with for our business listing page, and we're going to paste that shortcode into there. You can see that just pulls in this Elementor template 81. If we update this, we now have a custom area that'll pull in that template content. Let me show you what I mean now when we jump over to our demonstration page. You see at the top of the screen, we've got this filter section. We can click, expand that out, and there's our live filters all pulled in from Facet WP, but we can close those up so we don't take up a huge amount of space on our page, so it makes this a nice, easy way of working. Let's just take a look at those filters in action. So if I click to expand these out, you can see it'll show us all the business types, all the locations, and it'll tell us how many businesses reside in any of those different criteria. So if we want just the art supplies, we'll click on art supplies. That'll filter it out, and you can see that Edinburgh and London have no businesses of this particular type, whereas Cardiff does. Now obviously we've only got 3 examples in here at the moment, but if you had 300, then you're going to populate these in a much more sort of logical and full-fledged fashion. But this should show you how easy it is to work with. So let's close that down. I'm going to quickly style this, and then we're going to see exactly where we can go on from there. So there we go. With a little bit of styling, adding a little header at the top, you can see everything now just looks a little bit more professional and just ties in a little better with everything. So we've gone through the process now of creating our filters. The next thing I'm going to do is give you the ability to have that front end sort of a submission form section. Now to do that, we're going to be using a plugin called WP User Frontend Pro. Like I said at the top of the video, this is something you pay for, but if you want that simple way of letting people submit forms into your database for businesses, sort of accommodation businesses, all those kinds of things, this is a good solution. If you found something else though you think is better, cheaper, or free, just pop that in the comments section below so we can all share in the knowledge of what is out there available to us. Okay, so let's just jump back into our dashboard. Now in the settings section of user front end, and as you can see, there are a ton of options available to you inside this. Now I'm only going to set up 1 or 2 things in here because that's all we really need to demonstrate this. But if you'd like me to deep dive into this plugin and show you a lot more what it can do, let me know in the comment section below and I'll take a look at creating some content specifically on this particular plugin. But just so you know that you are not restricted to just having a simple form. If you want to use it that way, you can do. But you can also set this up so there's payment options to make people pay to actually submit data to your website. You can also make sure that they have a login account, they're logged in, what pages they go to. There's a ton of options. It's a really deep plugin that has tons of functionality. We're just going to scratch the surface in this. So what I need to do under the general options section is most importantly say ACF compatibility and set that to yes. We'll scroll down, save our changes. And that means now that we've got ACF compatibility, so it's going to work with our custom fields. Once we've done that, if we come over to the left-hand side under the user front-end section, we're going to come through to post forms. So we're going to click on that, and you can see there's nothing available in here at the moment. So let's click to add our first form in. Now we can choose from a range of predefined layouts and use those if we want to. We want to start with a completely blank form. So let's say create form. Once we've done that, the first thing we're going to do is give this a name. So we're going to change it from sample form and we're going to call this submit new business. Click on the tick and we are done. Now if we take a look down on the right hand side, you can see there's various different field types, but we need to do one more thing before we can start using this properly. We need to go to the settings section, and from there we need to say what post type are we actually looking to post to. By default you can see it says post, which is not what we want. Click on there, we're going to come down and choose business. Once we've done that, that means that we now have a link through to any of the fields that are associated with that custom post type. This is important. If you find that you're missing different fields, especially the taxonomy fields, this is probably the reason why. So post status, we're going to set that to pending review. So with that set to pending review, it means that any posts that are posted via this form will not automatically go onto the website, which obviously isn't something you'd want to do. There are lots of options inside here. We might take a look at those a little later on, but for now we've got everything we need. So we jump back into our form editor. You should notice now that the taxonomies have changed. We now have business type and business location. That's because we've associated this with the business custom post type. So we now have the fields we need inside there. Now, speaking of fields, this is basically just a drag and drop affair. All we need to do is grab this post title, drag that over onto the field, and you can see there it's now inserted into our new form. We can come over and you can see we've got 4 different options when we hover over any of these different elements, these form elements. We've got the move option, we've got the edit option, clone, and the trash can. We're going to click on edit, and from there we're going to change the name of this because post title doesn't make a lot of sense. So let's just put in business name. We'll set that to be required. Under the advanced options, you can expand that down, and we've got a range of other options inside there. So we can choose things like placeholder text, default value, word restrictions, and so on and so forth. That's fine as is. Come back out of here. We're going to come down this time, and what we want now is we want to have the featured image. So we're going to drag and drop that in there. Again, if we click on the edit options, you can see we can make this required. Any advanced options, we can set anything we want on there, so we can limit the size of the file upload to make sure that we don't end up with huge files on there. And you can do this in any way you want. So next, and the final option that we've got, which is part of the default setup that we have of any kind of post, is the post content. So we're going to drag and drop that into there, change it from post content. So we're going to change that from there, and we're going to put in business description, just so anyone that's actually putting the information in will have a better understanding of what's going on. And again, we want that to be required, and we could just choose how big this is. We can limit the information. We can even set it up so it's just either normal, so there's no rich text editing, the rich text area, or we can set a teeny rich text area. So it's up to you how you want to do this. I'm going to leave it as the rich text area for now. You can see we can also enable image upload in the post area. For this example, we don't want that. We want this just to be text. So there we go. We've got everything we need in there. So we can come back over, and now we're ready to start adding in the custom post type fields, our ACF fields. So what we're going to do is we're going to come over, we're going to drag in a text field, going to drag that underneath there. And once we've done that, we can now come in and edit this. And the first thing we're going to do is give this a name of business address, which is the first of our custom fields. Now you can see what happens underneath is it puts in what it thinks is the meta key. Now, this is probably right in a lot of cases, and if we take a look at our ACF listing, you can see business address is exactly what we have there. So if you're ever unsure, it's worth having another tab open, and what you can do then is simply copy and paste these between this tab and the post form area, just to make sure you've got everything spelled exactly the same as you have in your ACF fields. Okay, next up, let's set that to required. If we come to the advanced options, there's one option in here you need to make sure that you enable. That says show data in post. It's currently set to yes. We don't want that. We want it set to no. Otherwise, what will happen is when this form is submitted and the data is previewed on screen, you'll have the business description, and underneath that, any of these custom fields will also be written down underneath there. It looks like a complete mess. We want to restrict those ACF data fields to the specific template areas that we want to assign them to. So just make sure on all of these ACF fields that you just set this to be no, unless of course you do want that information to be part of the main business description. Okay, so there's the first one. I'm going to quickly zoom through the rest of these, and then we'll come back and we take a look at adding in the taxonomies and the gallery image uploads. Okay, so there's the basic field setup in there. Next one we're going to do is drop in the image gallery field. Now, you don't have an image gallery field in this particular plugin, but what you do have is an image upload option. So we're going to drop that into there. We're going to come in and edit this. I'm going to change that from image upload to business gallery. Now, this puts in the meta key, and the meta key is perfectly fine. You can change the title of this to whatever you want. So you can just say upload images. We put max 5, but you can see what happens is the meta key then pulls in what it thinks is the right information. So you need to make sure that you're aware of the fact that this needs to be set up to the right information that you take from your ACF field. So you can see business gallery is the name of that custom field. With that in place, we can say, you want to set this to required, yes or no. We're going to leave that to no. The advanced options are very useful though. You can see this allows us to change the maximum file size. So let's just say we want to set that to 256, in other words, 2 megabytes. Maximum file upload, we'll set that to 5. Show data in post, we set that to no. And then obviously we can set any other parameters we want inside this. So there's our gallery setup. The next thing we need to do is come back to all fields, and we're going to link this through to our taxonomies. Now we have our 2 taxonomies associated inside here. So the first thing we're going to do is drag this down for business type. Then we'll drag the business location one down underneath it, and we'll edit those. So first things first, we'll change that from business type written like that to business type written in proper English. Is it required? Yes, it is. Any advanced options you want on there? So you can see we can choose a range of things like the type, if you have multi-select if we want to. Just up to you how you want to do this. You might want to restrict a business to only be available in one location and to have one business category. And if they want additional ones, they have to upload additional entries. Or if you wanted to, you could have multi-select, checkbox, and so on. So you can see, again, some really cool options in there. It gives us a ton of options. Final thing we're going to do is come to the business location and change the name of that. There we go. And the reason you're not seeing that ACF custom field underneath is because we're dealing with a taxonomy, and this has already been configured and set up. It knows what data to pull into that. So we just set that to required, and everything else should now be in place. So if we click save our form, everything should be there ready for us to save it, and then we can take a look on the front end. So there you go. Our form is now saved. If we want to preview this, we can click on preview. That'll open up a new tab, and there's our form. Now obviously it looks a little bit rough around the edges at the moment because we just don't have any styling or anything applied to it. So let's not worry about that at the moment. So there's our form. There's the shortcode for our form, so we can copy that shortcode if we want to. And now we can come back into our pages and come into all pages. And inside there, we have the page that I created, which was Add Your Business. So let's click on that. And once we've edited that, we can come in now and we can start editing this inside Elementor. So let's just say we'll edit that with Elementor. And once we're inside there, we can start styling everything out and building up our sort of form submission page. So first thing I want to do is get rid of that page heading. So let's get shot of that. I'm simply going to pull in some predefined design elements that I've got. So let's just add a new area in. And this is where we're going to drop our form in. So let's just simply come in, add some padding at the top and bottom of this, just to give it a bit of breathing space. And finally, we're going to come in and we're going to say we want the short code. Drag and drop that into there. And inside there, we're going to drop our short code for our form. And that now puts that into position. Now, it looks a little bit odd when you're looking at it inside Elementor's preview, but when you actually view it on the site, it comes out and actually looks pretty good. Now, just applying a little bit extra styling to that, and we'll just hit update on there. And then we'll take a preview of this page. So let's just take a look at that. And there we go. There's our page layout all set up for us. All our taxonomies are in there. Our different areas for business location. All those kinds of things are laid out for us. So there's our submission form. So the next thing we're going to do is take a look at that in action and see if we need to configure any more settings just to make sure everything is working the way we want it to. So let's test this business form out. Let's just put in some basic information. So it doesn't really matter too much what I put in here. Set a featured image. We'll choose anything we want. Say open that one. You can see this will upload it, tell you the file size and show you a thumbnail of that image. And drop in some information and we'll just say this is in London. Obviously, like I say, you could put a full business address in there if you want to. And only business telephone number. Just put in a random number in there and we'll say no@email.com. Don't know why we become American there. And we'll say it'll go through to my website. There we go. Select our images. So we're going to select 3 images and we'll open those up. You can see again, it'll show us a nice little preview as it uploads those images. We can then choose the business type and the business location, and then we'll hit submit. And what will happen after you submit this is, and again, you have control over this inside the plugin. What this one's going to do, you'll submit it, it'll then take you over to the template and show you what your business listing will look like. So you can see this shows exactly what we've just pulled in, the images, the gallery images, the location, the information about the address, telephone, and email, the description, and so on. But what happens then is if we come back over to the dashboard and we'll refresh this for the businesses, you'll see my business is in there, the one we just added, but it's placed in pending. So we come back over to this and we'll go and take a look at our business listings. You'll see currently that business isn't listed because it's not actually confirmed as being a fully fledged business. We haven't sort of like approved it. Come back over, we'll just edit this business. And we'll set this from pending and we'll just say publish that. Once that's published, come back out our business listings and refresh. And we find now my business is now listed inside there. If we click through, we'll see we've got the full business listing all set up. So that's how we can create this form that allows us to submit this data through, puts it into pending. And like I say, there are a ton of other options you have available. So if you do want to find out more about it, let me know in the comment section and I'll take a look at creating some specific content for it. But that's how we go through the front end form submission. Pretty simple and straightforward with a ton of extra options should we need them. Now we're getting close to the end of this video. We've covered most of the topics. Final thing I want to go through is the search. To do that, we're going to use Search WP. We're going to come into the settings section and we're going to come into Search WP. And inside there, we've got the Search Console, which allows us to go through and set up exactly what we want to search and how much weight we want to give to certain things. Now, why are we using Search WP as opposed to just using a normal search in WordPress? Well, WordPress, out of the box, doesn't actually allow you to search against custom fields. So if you create custom post types like we've done for the businesses, it ignores it completely. So we need to have a way of dealing with that. So what we need to do is get into Search WP and tell it what we want it to do. Now, Search WP looks pretty simple, and in all honesty, it is a very simple plugin to work with, but you do have an incredible amount of power. So what we have at the moment is the native WordPress search results. So in other words, the posts and the pages. Now, we're not going to be utilizing those at all. So what I can do is I can simply get rid of them. So we're going to exclude this. I'm going to exclude the pages. So now we have nothing to search against. So what we're going to do is we're going to say add post type. And you can see it shows us in there what kinds of post types we want to include or exclude. At the moment, we've got posts, pages, media, and businesses. Now, we only want businesses. So we're going to come down and choose businesses. And that now inserts it and says that's going to be our search criteria. If we expand this out, you can see we now have options on how we want to search and what weight we want to add to those searches. So if we take a look, you can see we've got title, content, and slug. So these are the key things. We then have the weight multiplier. In other words, how much weight do we want to apply in the search to this particular criteria? So the title, obviously quite a lot. The content is currently set to, well, pretty much minimum. Now, depending upon the kind of site that you're developing, the content might be really important. So for this example, we're going to bump that up and say that we want this to be average. If we want to, we can add additional attributes in there. So we can click on add attribute. You can see we can add a taxonomy or a custom field. So if we say custom field, we can then choose what custom field do we want to search against. So we've got things like business address, business strapline, telephone number. So we might say we want to add in all of these different things. So let's just say we want to add in the business address. Click on done. We can then say how important that is. So we can say that's a little bit important. You know, some people may search for the business address. We come in and say, let's add in another custom field. We come in there and let's just say we want to add in something along the lines of the actual business telephone number. So we'll say business telephone, click on done. We can up this if we want to, and again, we'll set this to about 15. So we're allowing people now to search through and find information in our custom post types based upon the title, the content, the slug that's being used, the business address, the business telephone, and so on. So you can add in as many as you want into this until you're happy with it. And if you want to add in additional post types, you may have created a lot more custom post types. You may want to search against the normal WordPress posts or pages. You can enable or disable that. You then got things like the weight and so on. Now, I'm not going to worry too much about these. We're going to leave those at their default. So we'll say save engine. That will now save that with all the settings we have in place. Then you'll see on the right hand side, it's now going through the content that's currently on the site and indexing all that information. So it says the last time is activity was right now. The number of indexed entries, we've got 4 businesses, so currently there are 4 being indexed, unindexed 0, main row count, and so on. So it's telling us it's gone through and indexed all the current information on the site. So we've got search statistics. If we want to jump over to there and we can see any search data. So when people start to search our site, we can find out what are they searching for and all those kinds of good things. If we come back out of that and go back to the settings, back into Search WP, and we come over into the Advanced tab, you can see we've got additional options in there. So what we can do is we can tell it to sort of look at search words or stop words, I should say, synonyms and so on. So we can add additional things in there, tell it what to ignore and so on. Up to you what you want to do, and there's help there available to you. We've also got options then on the right hand side for your index and restore notices and all these kinds of things. Now, this is mostly stuff we don't need to touch. But one thing I would suggest you do is remove all data on uninstall, which is quite useful. So if you remove this plugin for any reason, everything that's with it is taken out. So you don't leave little bits and pieces behind, which can happen when it comes to WordPress and plugins. More plugins need to have that option. Okay, there's another thing you also can sort of enable if you want to. That's the partial matches or fuzzy when necessary. So what this is going to do is if you spell a word slightly incorrectly or you only put part of a word in, this will look at it and it'll use that as something. And if it finds it's quite close to what you typed in, then it'll actually pull that up as a search result. Again, up to you what you want to do. You can enable that or disable that. So I'm going to say enable that. You can see now, enable partial matches can adversely affect performance and relevancy. So it's up to you if you want to do that. And obviously, if you have a small site, it's not too much of a problem. However, if you have a big site with lots of entries, then this could slow things down. So up to you how you want to use that. But like I say, there are additional options on there. So we've done everything we want. Now let's go and test that out on the front end of the site by adding in a search section and taking a look at how it works. Now I've gone ahead and jumped over into the homepage for the website, and I've already inserted just a generic WordPress search. This isn't a special plugin or widget. This is just the normal WordPress search. So you can style that, integrate it into your site however you want to do it. Once you've got that, let's take a look at this in action and see what happens. Come back over to our businesses. We'll go back to our homepage where we've got that search inserted, and let's just type something in. So we know some of the names of the businesses. We know art is in one of them. So let's just put art in, and we'll hit search. And there we go. There's our business pulled back up. It looks absolutely horrible. We'll deal with that in a moment. Now then, we do have the ability now to go through and create a custom archive for our search results. Now by default, because we're using a theme like hello, which is basically blank, we don't really have templates set up for a lot of these things. So we need to deal with that. Let's come back into our website, come back out of this, and we're going to exit to our dashboard and go back to our template section and into theme builder. Going to create a new archive page, and we're going to say add a new archive. For this, we're going to call this search archive, and we'll just say create template. So now we can create our custom template specifically for dealing with search results. If we want to, we can use some of these, but we're going to back out of this, and what we're going to do is we're going to create our own custom archive setup. So we can do this in various different ways. We can drop in the archive posts if we want to, or if we wanted to, we could actually still use the posts option. For this, and just for ease, we'll do the archive posts. So let's just drag and drop that into there. Now that's currently displaying the post data, so it's not what we want to show. So what we're going to do is we're going to come into the settings, like we did before, to the preview settings. We're going to change that, and that's currently displaying the post data, which is perfectly fine. We're not too bothered about what it displays. What we do want to do is just make things look a little better. We want this to follow the same scheme as we've got with any of the business listings, so we need to change this skin from the classic, choose custom, and from there we're going to choose our default business loop. And this is the nice thing about creating custom loops. You can, if you want to, keep on using those again and again and again. So we say default business loop. From there we can specify how many results we want to have on the page. We can add pagination in there if we want to. Any kind of pagination, we'll do it like that. We enable facet WP if we want to as well, so we could filter that out again if we want, and we could easily add the filter section at the top. So we've got the basics in there. Let's just make this look a little better, then we'll test it out. So what I've gone ahead and done is just drop in a nice header at the top, applied the filter template, and got everything set up. So now if we save this, we can come in and set the display conditions. We make sure this says it's going to display it for the search results, and then we say save and close. We now have our search results page. So let's take a look at that in action. Jump back over to our homepage with our search, and this time we're going to type in lorem, which we know is in most of the businesses because it's in the body text. And like I say, these are all custom fields. So you can click the search for that, and there we go. There's our search results. So you can see there's our businesses all set up and listed. We've got everything laid out using the template we set up. We've also got our filters available on there. So if we want to, we can say we want to just look at the art supplies ones that fit that particular name, and our filter is now working. So we've applied that nice simple filter. We've created a nice template that pulls up our search results and just a whole range of really cool features. Let's take a quick look now at the whole site in action. So if we go to our business listing section, we now have our business listed underneath there. We've got our filters set up so we can filter that out based upon the location and also the business type. We've created a custom loop so we can set this out exactly where we want. We can have any details we want from our business listings. We can click through, we create our own custom page to show any of the listings with all the relevant details inside there. Finally, we've also got the add your own business, so you can simply come in, add businesses in there, have this automatically added into the database, ready to be confirmed by the administrator of the website. And finally, if we go to the home section, we now have a search that'll search through our custom fields. So we've got a lot of different ways in which we can access the data that's been created as part of this tutorial. So there we go. That's how we can go about building a business listing website with front-end submission, live filters, and an advanced search, all done with WordPress and advanced custom fields. Now this is something I think should set you up for creating much more complex websites once you get an understanding of how these tools work and how we can integrate them together to create way more advanced, way more feature-rich websites using WordPress and advanced custom fields as a great starting point. If you'd like to learn more about WordPress, advanced custom fields, and building more advanced websites, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, smash that bell icon, and check out the videos you can see on screen right now. They're going to get you up to speed with all the cool things that you can do with advanced custom fields, WordPress, dynamic data, and so much more. Well, my name's been Paul C. This has been WPTuts, and until next time, take care.